the topic tonight is the spirit of kindness. The spirit of kindness. For me, it is one of the most important practices in the path of yoga. Most of us think of yoga as, most of you with me don't think of yoga as just asanas, just postures. We know it's a lot more than that. But sometimes we get so involved in the, sometimes we get even too practical with our practices. What do I mean by that? Let me tell you a little story that Ramakrishna tells. He had a disciple, and this disciple decided to practice pranayama. He was told that if he practiced pranayama intensely for 12 years, he would be able to walk across water. So he got so excited. So what he did for 12 years is he practiced pranayama over and over and over and over again. At the end of 12 years, he went to the river and he could cross the water because the practice of pranayama made his body really light. So he went to his guru Ramakrishna and said, Ramakrishna, look at me, I can walk across water. And Ramakrishna looked at him and said, really? And how long did it take you to walk across the water? 12 years of practice. Interesting. It takes me 1 rupee to pay the boatman and I get across right away. And this is what I'm talking about, the real essence of yoga. Sometimes we get so caught up in the technical scripture. We just study the letter of the scripture, but we don't go into the depth, the real depth, which is love and kindness and goodness. There's a lovely other story I'd love to tell you about the spirit of kindness. There was this, and this is a Buddhist story, there was this great teacher and people went to him from all over the world. And he was really famous and he had a big sangha and everybody, wow, this guy's so clever, we got to learn from him. And one day all the people started to leave. And he was surprised, why is everybody leaving me? So one of the disciples said to him, no, they're not leaving you. It's just that they found something more in another teacher, something that you haven't been able to give them. You've given them a lot of knowledge, but there's a little bit more. And he goes, really? What could it be that I wasn't giving them? So he was very curious, so he decided to visit that teacher. So he walked up to the teacher, he was proud, and he went to visit this teacher, and he walked up to him, he said, I want to know what you have that I don't have, that everybody has come to see you. And the teacher said, well, I don't have anything different. So what do you teach them? And he looked at the man and said, what do you mean? So what do you teach them? And he says, I teach them to be good. That's what you teach them? But every kindergarten student is taught that. And the master answered, yes, everybody is taught that, but not everybody lives it. You got it? So for me, the spirit of kindness is what moves us. It's what awakens up the soul, the spirit. You know, a long time ago when I first started, I learned this from one of my students. She came to one of my first talks, and after a few weeks she said to me, you know, Nalanie, I've been thinking a lot. And I said, what is the problem? She said, it's not a problem. But she said, you know, for a few months now, I go to work at a building called ICC in Gibraltar. And on the way up, there's an escalator. Yeah, so well, there's a Spanish lady. She's kind of old, not that old, but she has trouble going up the escalator every morning, and she takes a few minutes before she gets on it. So I said, I hope you help her. And she goes, that's the thing. I want to. Every day I say I'm going to, but something stops me. I kind of like, what if she shouts at me? What if she doesn't want the help? Nobody else is helping, so why should I help? And I said, but what does your heart tell you? And she said that I should go and help. So I said, then listen to your heart, and if she shouts at you, you'll know not to ask her the second day. But you mean you spent 2.5 months thinking this every morning? Just do it. And if she screams, she screams. But if you do it, you'll be an example to everybody else who watches it and nobody helps her. Anyway, I saw her the following week. She came to the talk. And her face was glowing. She was a different person. She was a different person. And I said, what happened? I'd forgotten she had asked me this question. She said, Nalanie, you don't believe what happened. I walked up to her the very next day and I said to her, I don't speak Spanish, but can I help you up the steps? And she goes, oh, gracias, 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 gracias. As if she was waiting for years for somebody to listen to her. And so she walked her up the escalator. She went with her up the escalator, held her hand the whole way, and the woman broke out in a smile. And she looked at her and said, Mañana? Oh. And so she said, and I've been doing it all week. And she said, you know, Nalanie, I feel something in me has awakened. Act of kindness towards somebody else awoke the spirit in her. And you know, when I heard that, and I thought, how simple is it really, this yogic practice? Because we want connection, right, with the divine. We want connection with energy. And these are the clues. I mean, I learned so much from all my students. These are the clues. And of course, after she did that, then I thought, I really want to be more kind in my life. How can I be more kind in my life? Because the kinder I am, the happier I am. If in 1 week this deed has changed her personality to such a degree, and it's such a small deed, wow, we can do so many deeds in a day that can make us become alive. And that's when I realized, again, another hint that the divine is in everyone. And we need to bounce off each other before we can connect. And this is why we need communion. And this is why we need Sangha. Or at least to live in a home with like-minded people. Otherwise it becomes extremely difficult. We're constantly on an upward battle. So if you are living in a home that's not with the same kind of people, and you try to be kind and they don't respond, then really you have to find a solution. What your solution is, that's your journey. That's what you have to work out. And try to make the solution as kind as possible. But kindness, remember, doesn't mean weakness. Okay? Goodness is not weakness. And this is something we have to understand. Remember, we're all here. If we, for example, we're all here in this body, and each one has their own body to find the divine. And that's why I believe we're also different. Because God wanted to know God in each of us. Otherwise, why bother? Just clone everyone, right? Much easier. But because the facets of the divine is energy, consciousness, it's infinite. It's infinite. It's infinite. It's even beyond this earth. It's even beyond this planet. It is beyond everything. So we are just a minute part of that infinite energy, that consciousness. But in that minute part, we've all been given the gift to connect with that consciousness called God, with that power station. And when we do connect, we know there's a joy that surges within us. There's a peace. There's a peace that abides within us. Ramakrishna used to say, the winds of grace are always there. They're just always there. The winds of grace. But in order to catch them, you have to raise your sails up. You have to raise the sails up. So we have to raise the sails up to catch the wind. But when we do that, it's already there. Grace is already there. And kindness is one of the sails, that we can raise up. It's one of those sails, kindness. And it warms our heart. And how many people I've seen feel this kindness. Now, sometimes we also get mistaken. And sometimes when we do charity for people, we think we are being kind. I would like to think when we are doing charity for people, they are being kind to us to allow us that feeling of kindness. But sometimes, and again, I have met lots of people that have taught me so much about kindness. Once I met this guy who worked with a big organization, and I met 3 or 4 of these kind of people in my life, and he came to Gibraltar to visit my husband. Actually, he was a friend of my husband's at that time. And he came, and he'd been working with this big organization for years. He'd been to Africa, he'd been to India, he'd been to the East, he's been to the Philippines to help people in need. But he was the most miserable man I ever met. Now, this really surprised me, right? And I remember asking him, I said, but how can you be miserable? How can you be doing this job if you're so angry? I mean, isn't it kindness that wants you to do charity? Don't you do kindness from your heart? He goes, well, it's a job. Yes, I started off like that, but I meet so many crooks on the way, and it's hard work, and sometimes we're not appreciated, he said. We're not appreciated. And I said, well, that happens with everything in life. You can do many things, and sometimes people won't appreciate you. I told him, I said, maybe you should study the karma yoga. Maybe you should understand a little bit about the Gita or read Sri Patanjali. He said, what do you mean? I don't know anything about those things. And I said, what I'm saying is, it talks about the highest peace you can receive is when you do things, charity, whatever you do, kind acts, without expecting anything in return. Now, going back and expecting nothing in return, everything done in love, that's the energy field I'm talking about. When you do something in love, the energy field just rises. It rises, and it's almost tangent. You can feel it, I can feel it, we can all feel it, we can almost touch it, even across the waves of sound and light. But we can touch it, because what happens is these waves increase with love. And that's why for me, God is the Lord of love, and God is the Lord of peace. Because very simply, when we don't feel love and we don't feel peace, we feel not so good. We get into all kind of games, mind games. We start blaming ourselves. We start feeling guilt. We start thinking we're not good enough. And that's when we just go phew, all the way down. Guilt, blaming ourselves, none of this works. So expectations. For me, it is one of the most important practices in the path of yoga. Most of us think of yoga as, most of you with me don't think of yoga as just asanas, just postures. We know it's a lot more than that. But sometimes we get so involved in the, sometimes we get even too practical with our practices. What do I mean by that? Let me tell you a little story that Ramakrishna tells. He had a disciple, and this disciple decided to practice pranayama. He was told that if he practiced pranayama intensely for 12 years, he would be able to walk across water. So he got so excited. So what he did for 12 years is he practiced pranayama over and over again. At the end of 12 years, he went to the river and he could cross the water because the practice of pranayama made his body really light. So he went to his guru Ramakrishna and said, Ramakrishna, look at me, I can walk across water. And Ramakrishna looked at him and said, really? And how long did it take you to walk across the water? 12 years of practice. Interesting. It takes me 1 rupee to pay the boatman and I get across right away. And this is what I'm talking about, the real essence of yoga. Sometimes we get so caught up in the technical scripture. We just study the letter of the scripture, but we don't go into the depth, the real depth, which is love and kindness and goodness. There's a lovely other story I'd love to tell you about the spirit of kindness. There was this, and this is a Buddhist story, there was this great teacher and people went to him from all over the world. And he was really famous and he had a big sangha and everybody, wow, this guy's so clever. We got to learn from him. And one day all the people started to leave. And he was surprised, why is everybody leaving me? So one of the disciples said to him, no, they're not leaving you. It's just that they found something more in another teacher, something that you haven't been able to give them. You've given them a lot of knowledge, but there's a little bit more. And he goes, really? What could it be that I wasn't giving them? So he was very curious, so he decided to visit that teacher. So he walked up, the teacher, he was proud, and he went to visit this teacher, and he walked up to him, he said, I want to know what you have that I don't have, that everybody has come to see you. And the teacher said, well, I don't have anything different. So what do you teach them? And he looked at the man and said, what do you mean? So what do you teach them? And he says, I teach them to be good. That's what you teach them? But every kindergarten student is taught that. And the master answered, yes, everybody is taught that, but not everybody lives it. You got it? So for me, the spirit of kindness is what moves us. It's what awakens up the soul, the spirit. That's when you overcome. You overcome your personal ego. And this is what the yogis are talking about. And this is why all of them mention serve, love, give. Because you kind of forget yourself, which is not a bad thing sometimes. Because when we're in ourselves, oh my God, so many mind games. So how do we do this? How do we get ourselves out of this? By strengthening your will. Strengthening your will. And when the will is strong, then it wants to do the work to awaken the soul. But you see, many times we want to do it and then we go, but I can't, and this has happened and that has happened. Then we become a little weak. And this is when you really need to, the mind say, what's the point? Why bother? Like this man that came to see me. Why bother? They cheat me. And then I said to him very clearly, I said, then quit the job, get another job. I said, how much do you get paid? It's quite a lot, actually. It was 30-something, 40,000 a year or something. And I thought, what? Aren't you just happy with your pay? At least you get paid for this, Well, not happy with the pay, not happy with anything. Why are you doing the job? Leave it. And then he started chatting to me. I said, I'm just telling you, life is so short. You doing whatever job you do, charity or not charity, at least it should give you peace. It should give you peace. And you're doing such a good deed for so many people. And the only thing that's stopping you from getting the results of your kindness is your expectation. So that kindness and that love is what people recall. And that's what stirs our spirit. It awakens that spirit. We need to be awake. Sometimes the problem is ourselves. We're not kind to ourselves. And that's where we start judging everybody else. We need to be kinder. So what do we need to do? First of all, we have to look at how we are looking at ourselves. Is our will strong? Are we weak? Do we take offense easily? If we take offense easily and we get touchy quickly, then we need to spend more time finding out what are triggers. What triggers us? What does that person say that triggers me? Once you learn the triggers, you learn to stay away from the triggers. Or when they happen, you tell them immediately. You tell them immediately. Please don't do this because it gets me upset. And if they carry on, say, I have voiced it, now you want to carry on, then I guess I'm better out of your way and just move out of their way. But learn the triggers. And if it's yourself, for example, I'm way too sensitive. I must have a huge ego. That's probably the truth most of the time, by the way. I must have a huge ego. Okay, why do I take offense so quickly? And then you look back in your life and you'll come to a wonderful conclusion, which I can tell you right now, is you have very low self-esteem. So to fight for that little esteem you have, you have to pretend to be harsh and take everything. Oh, I'm not sensitive. It's your fault that I react this way. You're just trying to hide what's going on, really going on inside of you. So the most important thing then, in the spirit of kindness, is learn first to be kind to yourself. And one of the ways I learned to be kind to myself was to tell my husband, I remember in those days, you know what, I really want to become a better person. I don't like being angry. So I am going to take an hour off work every morning. Instead of going in at 9:30 for work, I will be at work 10:30. But I'm going to use that hour to meditate every morning. Didn't like it, but I did. I liked it. And I still worked hard all day, but I did that for me. I needed to do that for me. And in the end, he used to respect that time so much, so much. Of course, it got earlier and earlier and I needed more hours to practice. So I had 3 hours in the morning before breakfast time later on in my life. Get up at 5 and be ready by 8 to have breakfast. So because when you have that will and you have that love, you do it. And the reward is the peace. And once you taste that peace, once you feel it, you shouldn't want to let it go. That's why Sri Patanjali tells us, please don't stop the practice. Practice for a long time, without a break, and all your heart. And to the keen and intent practitioner, this samadhi comes very quickly. Nobody can do this for us. And of course, once you connect, then you don't have to think about kindness because you connect with everybody. So you can be kind to everybody because everybody is divine. You start to see that. But it's very difficult while we're living in a world with families, like I said. So there's a journey to go through. And while you're going through that journey, remind yourself constantly, this is a journey and I'm going to get there. At the end, I am going to get to my peace. And this is a journey for me to either learn to be stronger. Maybe I'm too much of a coward, which is what I realized I was. I was too much of a coward to tell my husband how I was feeling. So instead of telling him, I shouted at him, which created an argument. So why was I a coward? What did I fear? I feared that that I wasn't gonna be good enough. We have these weird thoughts in our head that have no logic. And then I realized the mind carries a lot of illogical thoughts that really we don't even have to deal with it. We just have to watch them. We just have to watch them in, out. But what happens is when we have these illogical thoughts, we grasp onto them. We hold them. And that's what we need to learn not to do. Okay, I got this thought. I got so upset about it. It really got me. I don't need to hold on to it. It's illogical. Nothing to do with me, to do with that person. I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm going to let it go. My will is stronger. My will for peace is stronger. And if it's not strong, work harder, work harder. Then you don't have to think about the spirit of kindness, like that master story that I told you in the beginning. He was just good. But he was honest with it. He told the other gentleman, yeah, every child knows it, but do you act it? Do you behave in the right manner? This is the goal of life. And when we do that, the more we do that, the stronger we become. And then we start to discriminate. We start to discriminate between the kind of actions we want to take and we don't want to take. And we discriminate not with anybody else there as the screen, but we bring the screen to ourselves inwards, and we bring it inwards, and we got to heal ourselves. Because if you live in a toxic environment, it's very difficult. So you really have to work with yourself daily and go for long walks and ask for signs. I always asked for signs. I always got them. I asked for a sign. Okay, what should I do with this situation? I want a sign. If I should do this, I want to see like a big butterfly. If I don't see it, I know I'm not to do it. And you know what? I would see a big butterfly, then I know I have to take this action. Ask for signs. Ask for signs. You know, if you're confused, pray. Be patient. Be really patient. Because, as my master would tell me all the time, he said, Nalanie, Rome was not built in a day. You cannot change overnight. Give your consciousness time. Give it time. Just do the practice, but really understand the spirit of the practice. We've been speaking on the yoga of devotion for the last 4 weeks, and before that we spoke about let it be. And if you look at Sutra 1, Book 2, Sri Patanjali, there is the secret of Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga, Kriya, to move it with action, because you may have the thoughts and you may have the will. Now you have to put in the action. That's Kriya, cleansing, and movement, action. So what is Kriya Yoga? He gives us such great clues in that one sutra. Please remember it. Sri Patanjali, Book 2, Sutra 1. Accepting pain for purification, number 1. So you're going through pain. Why am I going through this pain? This pain is helping me to purify myself, okay? So what action? When you go through pain, you burn, right? So accepting pain for purification. You're going to burn. Now find a solution. What water can you put in the body to give the burn some relief? And so you can put the water you would use is actually a meditation with water would do really well, actually. You just imagine a waterfall coming through you and washing away all the darkness and all that pain, and see your body lighting up with, like the sun hitting the water, and they look like diamonds, and that's going through your body. So what else? What other medicine could you use? Be around happy people. Sri Patanjali also tells us. So, while you're going through the bad stuff, look for the good stuff to put in your body. Do an act of kindness for somebody else. It will elevate your spirit. Don't focus on that which is dark. Bring your focus outside to that which is light. And it's going to be hard. It's a battle. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm telling you, it took me so many years. It's a battle. And you still have the battle for the rest of your life, folks. We're human. It's just that when the battle comes, as you get used to these battles, they get bigger and bigger, and after a while, it's just not worth it. You just don't keep it. It comes, you get irritated for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you go, yeah, I'm done. And you get done because you got so much practice over the years, and that is the amazing thing about practice. And when you do that, your soul becomes alive. It just becomes alive. The second thing he tells us is swadhyaya, study of spiritual books. So By study, it just doesn't mean study books, read spiritual books. It means read them, absorb them, then study your own mind. For example, if you read a sutra accepting pain for purification, okay, what's the pain that I'm going through? Be your psychologist. Why? You know, what triggers me? Did I have a lot of triggers in childhood? Do I really need them now? I'm no longer a child, I'm grown up now. I can forgive this now. Okay, I need to work at forgiveness. I need to forgive this because it affects me too much. And this is how you work yourself. And if you can't work yourself, give me a call, or give anybody around you know that's a healer, give them a call. You know, somebody you trust, call them. But call them. Don't waste too much time being in the mud. Call them. Okay? If you can't get somebody else will come along. When your cry is deep, the gods answer. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And the teacher can be a book, it can be a television program, like I said, or it could be the perfect person next door, might just walk in the room and give you the perfect answer. You're not getting it and you're stuck, get help. Alright? And so Swadhyaya is much more than just reading the books, because I know a lot of people who read all the scriptures. They read them all. But do they live them? And that's the question. You know, Gurudev told me this story, and it made such a difference to me when I first started on this path. He was in India with two of his disciples. They were American disciples. And he went to this Indian household, and the lady of the household went up to Gurudev and said, Gurudev, what kind of disciples do you have? Why? Why do you say that about my disciples? They don't know anything about the Gita. I asked them about the Bhagavad Gita. They know nothing about the Gita. And Gurudev looked at his hostess and he said to her, they may not know anything about the Gita, but they live the Gita. And he told us, she kept her mouth quiet. And she started watching them the whole day. And she realized that they were so sweet and so loving and so kind. So she had to swallow her words. So it was a great lesson for her. But when he told me that story, it was a great lesson for me. And the thing is, am I living the truth? Am I living this? And if I'm not, why? Okay, I'm in a situation where I'm stuck. Wait a bit, I'm in a fog. When you're in a fog, what do? Be a little kind to yourself. Stop, take a rest, take a break, get away from it, just stop. And then when the fog clears, then you carry on. Okay? It will always clear. Fog's always clear. Mind fogs always clear. Although the time you're going through those fogs, you're the cruelest to yourself. And that's what I tell people when they go through these dark periods. I said, forget about other people being cruel to you. You're the cruelest to yourself. You know, you should say, I need joy. I need joy, and then go and find joy. Just say, I need joy. Know what you need and go and look for it. Go run on the beach. Go out in the sun. You know, it's so beautiful. Just go out. I need joy. Go get it. Go get it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And this is the secret. You need joy? Put on music loud and sing. You need joy? Just make yourself joyful. That's being kind to yourself. And kindness, if you're kind to yourself, it's easier to be kind to everybody. In fact, it just falls into place. So for me, the spirit of kindness is vital. And then it comes to a point that the ego by itself fades. You don't have to say, I got a big ego, I got this. When you need to pretend you have a big ego, because sometimes in life you got to be tough. You have to pretend you have a big ego to get things done. You will use your ego to help you get things done in the world. And there are other times you can just park it aside and you can feel so humble, because the truth is, once you know you are part of the consciousness, it's mind-boggling. It just blows your mind. Like I say, you know, how can we even think we're great like that or anything like that? How can you think those thoughts? Because every time in the early days I used to think that. I used to see the vision of myself, looking at myself from one of those stars, and I was no bigger than a grain of sand. I was no larger than a grain of sand. Yeah, so when you feel the consciousness, then we're all together, you know? There's no better or worse, it's just different times in our journey, that's all. Different times, different lapses, you know? We're just on different parts of the road, but better or worse? None. I just believe the matrix, it's a matrix of karma that's so intertwined to make sure we learn from this life before it's too late. And the other day I was watching a television program, and let's correct me if I get it wrong, and there was a quote by Mark Twain that I really loved. He said, "The best 2 days of your life are the day you were born and the day you learn why you were born." And I love that, because the day I learned why I was born, and was much later in my life, and the moment I learned why I was born, I could get to doing it rather than procrastinating and waiting tomorrow. Ooh, that really scared me, that word tomorrow, because I thought I could die today. And that frightened me. I used to think about death a lot, and I say, I could be dead by tomorrow. I can't wait till tomorrow. I have to do it today. What I need to do, I really can't wait till tomorrow. Because if I go, I don't want to go with a feeling like I didn't live my life beautifully. And this to me was really important. So I had to quickly learn to be kind to myself, quickly learn to change the negative formations in the mind. You know, they call it neuroplasticity today. Neuroscience says you can do it. Neuroplanning. So many new words for what Sri Patanjali told us so many years ago. So many new words for the same action. And then you just replant the new seeds. And seeds take time. When it's natural, when the spirit of kindness is natural, it's not pretense. You don't have to pretend to be good or anything. You don't have to do any of that. It's just natural. And at that point, it becomes really such a privilege that you've been given such a great part in the play to act out. It just becomes privilege. It doesn't even seem like an act of kindness anymore. No more. It's just a privilege to be able to give somebody something that makes them happy, even if it's a smile. Just a smile. Wow. You know, one action can change your life. One action can change who you are. So never give up on yourself, guys. Never, 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 never. Dark periods will visit us, guaranteed. But every time you go through a dark period, the other one, it gets easier, 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 easier. All right?